in the previous episode. Oh!
How many times did I tell you not to disturb the guests of the cafe? Tell me, how many times?
There was no one else in the cafe's garden except him. The mom voice was calling from the stone wall right in front of his table. Chapter 5. How did Mino and his family come to arrive at the Fineflower Castle? Installment 4. A capable negotiator. But right at that moment, the mom voice called again from the stone wall.
Mino, come here right away, you spiteful little ghost!
To this last call of the mom voice, the shy voice of a child finally responded. It was the same voice that earlier had said, "Boo!" from inside the cup of tea.
But, Mommy, I was just playing.
This voice was coming from under the Count's table. The Count looked under the table, and at first he didn't see anything. But then, suddenly, he caught a glimpse of a kind of bluish, semi-transparent tiny ball, almost as big as the teacup that the Count had, but a short while earlier, been holding in his hands. He saw it dash from underneath the table towards the stone wall in front and vanish in between the stones of the wall. The Count, all amazed, got closer to the wall and kneeled down to inspect closely the tiny slots in between the stones of the wall that the tiny little bluish ball had just slipped into. He didn't see anything but stones and small slots in between the stones, the kind of tiny slots where lizards love to hide. But certainly, lizards do not talk. Determined to investigate this mystery, the Count said, addressing the tiny slots in between the stones, Good afternoon. Who is there? Not hearing any response, the Count realized that, contrary to good manners, he had forgotten to introduce himself first. My lady, I offer you my compliments. I, Count Fineflower, am humbly at your service. May I dare be presumed worthy of knowing your name? Exactly at that moment, while the Count was on all fours and, in truth, talking to a stone wall, a family entered the garden. They too, to drink something while admiring the beautiful and colorful sunset. But when they saw the Count in that position, on all fours and talking to a stone wall, they thought he was a madman, and they rushed out from the garden as quickly as they had come in. The Count Fineflower realized then that he must surely have seemed rather strange in that pose, and proceeded to get embarrassed about the scene he had presented the family with. But he was determined to investigate thoroughly that mystery. Who were those little creatures inside the wall?
Ooh!
Called the Count again towards the wall.
Who is there? I am curious, you know,
he said.
and I will not leave until I have discovered who is there.
Pardon him, won't you? Came the mum voice finally. Mino is a lively kid, and he sometimes causes troubles.
There is nothing to pardon, my lady, said the Count. I like lively kids, and your son hasn't caused any trouble to me at all. But rather, who are you, and what are you doing inside the wall? And how did you get into there in the first place?
After a short silence, and seeing that the Count was actually a good person, the mum finally came out of the tiny slots in between the stones of the wall. And she was, well, she was, she was a ghost. A real ghost. She was approximately as big as a big balloon, and she was pink. She was semi-transparent, and in fact, the Count was still able to see the sunset through her. She had 2 short arms, big eyes, a big mouth, and a tiny nose. Apparently, she didn't have legs, and to tell the truth, she didn't need any legs either, because she could float in mid-air. The Count Fineflower was dumbfounded, even more dumbfounded than that time, years ago, when he had found a blue-colored rose in the garden of the Fineflower Castle. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. He knew too well that ghosts don't exist. But right here and now, right in front of him, was a ghost. How could this be explained?
Pardon me, my lady,
said the Count to the ghost,
but ghosts don't exist.
Not fully realizing just how ridiculous he sounded making this pronouncement to a ghost. You are right, responded the ghost. We are the only ghosts in the world. There are no ghosts in the world except the 4 of us. My name is Phantasmona. My husband is Phantasmone. Our little son is Mino, and our elder son is Fantastico. He studies physics at the university, and he's currently on his Erasmus scholarship leave at the University of Edinburgh. We have been living inside this stone wall for several centuries. Nowadays, there is a cafe here. It is new. It just opened 60 years ago or so. The owners are nice people. They let us stay here, and they also give us food and invite us to dinner from time to time. And we are trying not to disturb the customers of the cafe. And if it wasn't for the naughty actions of that spiteful child, the customers wouldn't even notice us, she added then, staring angrily at Mino, who in the meantime had come out of the wall and was floating in mid-air next to his mom. He was almost exactly the same shape as his mother, only he was blue in color, unlike his mother, who was pink. and he was much smaller than his mom.
And what does it feel like to live in a stone wall? Is it comfortable?
Asked the Count.
It is a little tight, to tell the truth,
answered Phantasmona.
Now that Fantastico has temporarily moved out for Erasmus, Mino has got a room all for himself. But when Fantastico returns, we will certainly be short of room again. But, on the other hand, what else can we do? We are ghosts, and we can't work. Nobody would give jobs to a bunch of ghosts. I say, we are even so lucky to have a home for ourselves inside this wall, and to have as neighbors those adorable folks who run the cafe, who let us stay here, and in addition give us food. Frankly, we couldn't wish for anything more than that.
At this point, the Count Fineflower had the same idea that most of you have already had, I think.
Why don't you come and live with me and my wife, the Countess?
He suggested.
We have a beautiful medieval castle made of stones, very big and charming, and with a big garden all full of flowers all year round. You could have a big and luminous apartment all for yourselves. Mino could have a room all for himself and play in the garden as much as he wanted. And when Fantastico returns from Erasmus, he too will have a big room all for himself. Our castle is warm and comfortable, and we could have lunch and dinner always. What do you say?
It sounds like a fantastic plan,
said Phantasmona. Hearing the word fantastic, Phantasmone, Phantasmona's husband, burst from the wall.
Fantastico?
He asked.
Has Fantastico come?
Looking around him, all happy. He had the face of a ghost who has just woken up from an afternoon nap. He was almost equal in everything to Phantasmona, except for the half-closed eyes from sleepiness and the blue color.
And how can we repay you?
Asked Phantasmona to the Count.
For all those nice things you are willing to offer us.
By scaring as many people as you can.
Answered the Count, first smiling and then laughing out loud with happiness. Phantasmona, Phantasmone, and Mino looked at each other in surprise.
But why do you want to scare people?
Asked Phantasmona.
Poor people, and in your own castle. You want us to scare people in your own castle. Why, oh why?
You see, our castle is very ancient and it needs some repair. The roof is about to collapse and we need to get it fixed as soon as possible. But renovating the roof of a castle is a very expensive job. And we cannot afford it. So the Countess and I decided to open the castle to visitors who might be curious about seeing a medieval castle from inside. The idea was selling entrance tickets and making enough money to get the roof fixed. However, alas, no visitor has ever come. We couldn't understand how it was possible that a fantastic castle...
Fantastico, where?
Shouted again Phantasmone, happily and full of hope, looking around.
No, I meant a marvelous castle, continued the Count. We were desperate and we were about to give up on the idea of opening up our castle to visitors. But then we realized that people indeed adore ghost stories and they love to be scared. I still don't know why. But clearly, being an intelligent man, I know too well that ghosts don't exist.
While the Count was saying these things, Phantasmone, and Mino, three ghosts, were listening attentively to the Count without interrupting him. The Count, realizing the inaccuracy of the sentence he had just uttered in front of a whole family of ghosts, corrected himself.
That is, there aren't any ghosts except you folks, apparently. And so, well, what was I saying? Oh, yes. It has been weeks now that I have been driving to the town every day to talk to the special effect companies to install some special effect machinery in our castle in order to make it look like there are ghosts in our castle. We hoped that this way we would be able to sell entrance tickets for our scary castle haunted by ghosts. And we hoped that this way we would finally be able to collect enough money to get our roof repaired. But now that I have met you folks, who needs the special effects, I can directly ask your help to scare the visitors. And in return, I can offer you as much food as you wish and a fully furnished apartment in a marvelous medieval castle. Much better than a small stone wall. What do you say?
So you are saying that we'll need to work? How many hours a day? How many days a week?
Asked Phantasmone, apparently not at all impressed by the Count's generous offer of hospitality.
Well, I don't know. I'd say every day, from 10 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the evening. So, what do you say?
Not a chance. We'll work 5 days a week, from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. And at the weekends, we will have a rest.
Oh, okay, I'd say that it can be done. Now that I'm thinking, my wife and I would like to have 2 days of rest in a week without visitors in our castle too. All right then, I accept.
And we want a permanent contract with 14 months of salary every year. 1 additional monthly salary in June and 1 additional monthly salary in December.
But...
Obviously, a solid health insurance.
But... What?
And paid off days during illnesses and 5 weeks of yearly paid holidays as per the guidelines of the National Union of the Workers of the Show Business. And seniority and salary advancements every 2 years.
But, my lady, I beg your pardon. How many centuries did you say that you have been living inside this stone wall? You are very well informed about the contractual conditions of the labor market. Poor me.
We are ghosts, not fools.
The Count Fineflower ended up accepting all the conditions set by Phantasmona. After all, Phantasmona's requests were fair and reasonable. She was only asking for a fair compensation for the job that she and her husband would be expected to do for the Count and the Countess Fineflower, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It wouldn't be fair if, thanks to their work, the Count and the Countess earned a lot of money by selling entrance tickets and gave them only a place to stay and some food to eat. The Count knew that Phantasmona was asking for a fair compensation for the job he was asking them to do. And he actually liked a lot this mom ghost, who was such a good negotiator. Also, hiring some real ghosts, in any case, would cost him much less than paying for all the special effects equipment that would be necessary to make it seem like there were ghosts in the castle. Now, by hiring this family of ghosts, the Count and the Countess Fineflower would actually save money compared to buying all that expensive special effects machinery. And they would have real ghosts in their castle, not some special effects. And this lovely family of ghosts would finally move out of their wall and into a real and comfortable castle, fully furnished with all the amenities and surrounded by a big garden full of flowers, after having lived in a small and narrow stone wall for several centuries. A deal in which both parties gain something is surely a good deal. So here we are, dear listeners. The 4th installment of Chapter 5 ends here. I'll continue to tell you about how Mino and his family arrived at the Fineflower Castle next week. If you like Mino's stories, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you may be notified whenever a new episode will be uploaded. Also, please tell about Mino to your friends too. So bye for now, and see you all soon.